It is 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning as I'm leaving my favorite Irish pub in the Altstadt of Düsseldorf. Yes, I can party sometimes. I walk to the nearest U-Bahn train station, which is at Heinrich-Heinelle. I get on the train, and on my way home I think, wow, that was a very fun night with my friends. And at the same time it hits me, wait, I'm in a public train alone at 2 a.m. in Düsseldorf going home. And then I think, how cool is that? The sense of freedom that I felt in that moment has been inexplicable, and it remains with me until today. In this video, we're going to talk about 10 ways that I have felt free in Germany, which I didn't feel at home. Hey, my name is Jen and I'm from Guatemala.
And mine is Yvonne and I'm German.
And together we're from simplegermany.com, where we create content to empower internationals to settle into life in Germany more smoothly.
First of all, we would like to give a big disclaimer because we are fully aware that the word freedom is a very loaded word and has many, many different facets. In this video, we will only discuss Jen's perspective, and we are aware that her perspective will differ from maybe yours or others.
First one on my list is feeling generally safe. I talked to a German friend about this one day and she asked me, wait, but isn't this a given? And I was like, not in my country, and here are some examples why. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the fact that I could be alone at night in the city was a big deal for me. It took me some time to actually get used to this fact and to be brave enough to stay out longer.
To embrace it, yeah.
And to embrace it, because it's, like I said, it's not a thing that you do in Guatemala.
Whereas I grew up, pretty much as a child already very independent. We will talk about it a little bit later. And I used to take public transportations alone from the age of 10 up. When I was 18, I went out actually 45 minutes with a train to Cologne and the bus to go party, and I came home at 3 a.m. alone. So this is something that for me and as our German friend is completely normal. Now, mind you, we are also not glorifying the safety of Germany. I think it's important to say that anywhere in the world, also in Germany, there are areas that are not safe and that can be dangerous, and that there is crime. Yes, there is, absolutely. But it's just on a completely different scale to what Jen is used to from Guatemala. And for example, to name a few places. Here in Düsseldorf is an area called Worringer Platz. It's close to the Hauptbahnhof. We said in previous videos that the Hauptbahnhof area can be a little bit sketchy at times. And for example, now, if it's completely unavoidable, I would still go, but I would try to steer away from Worringer Platz at night, just because there is a little bit more homelessness, unfortunately, and that in this particular case comes with drug abuse. And Jen says it's not so much that you would, feel scared for yourself. It's more like you don't want to see what might be happening there.
Exactly. That's what I said. So I would avoid Worringer Platz, not because I'm scared someone will mug me at Worringer Platz, but it's just because of things that happen at Worringer Platz.
It's this uneasy feeling.
Yeah, between this community of people that hang out there.
Same in Berlin, for example, if you want to name one area, Görlitzer Platz is known as the drug park. Not Görlitzer Park, there you go, is known as the drug park of Germany. And I personally would not go there at night. So again, we're not glorifying, we're just stating the fact that
generally speaking, it is safe to take public transportation and walk at night. Again, I would say parks in general for me are I still get scared. I wouldn't cross a park in pitch darkness completely alone at like 2 a.m. I would try to go on the street where there's light, but that's just how I have been wired, right? But in the 10 years that I have been in Germany, I've never been mugged once or felt insecure on the streets once. Not enough that I can remember and tell you an exact case.
This actually leads to the second area in terms of safety. You just mentioned you've been mugged once. Have you?
Yes, in Guatemala, it's actually once is the minimum.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to say. In Guatemala, every friend that I've talked to from Jen, every single person has been mugged. And the point here is that it's not about the mugging per se, but it's the way how it's done. Because it's always at gunpoint. And that is not just about losing your phone or losing your camera, whatever is being taken, but the mental stress that comes with it. I've been with my school group. We went to a trip to Barcelona, and there our camera was mugged. This is the typical pickpocketing, but it's pickpocketing without affecting your mental health and living with stress or fear. So that, I would say, is the number one difference.
Yes, 100%. Like you said, you would talk openly with Guatemalan friends about all the violence you've seen, and it's completely normal. You shake it off. It's just how it is. But it takes a lot of mental how do you say this, stress and toll on you, because psychologically you get affected. And for example, for the longest time, I lived with so much stress that I would clench my hands in the middle of the night just walking home. And when I would arrive, I would open them and be like, whoa, okay, that was, how did that happen?
So from where were you walking home?
Sorry, from the bus stop. I didn't clarify that first, but good point. But that leads to the point also that here I don't see guns in the same intensity as I see them in Guatemala. To give you more examples, like in Guatemala, in the shops, in front of the shops, it doesn't matter if it's a kiosk or a big shopping center or a doctor's house, even sometimes, there are security guards outside with a shotgun or machine gun ready to protect the shop in case they get mugged. Here, the only guns I have seen have been on police officers.
Same for me.
And that's like, and if I really look closely and I want to see what kind of gun they have, not that I know, but just to know, just to look. However, in Guatemala, not only do you see the guns on the security guards, but you see them also on criminals and other people that run freely with guns and are not afraid to use them, I would say.
Yes.
Going with that sense of safety is something that might sound so trivial maybe for a lot of you watching this video, but it's a really big deal, at least for me, is the fact that I can be outside and anywhere in public areas with my phone and laptop. I can use them, visible. I can take them out, yeah. They're visible, and it's absolutely okay. I can be in my car streaming music from my phone, and the phone is at the dashboard. I mean, you can see it, and it's totally fine.
Whereas in Guatemala, and this was my biggest shock per se, the first time actually after half a year of dating that you took me, we went together, is that Jen was driving, and mind you, in Guatemala, all windows, also the front and the driver windows are tinted, so they're dark already. And I had my smartphone on, Google Maps, navigating, Jen through the area. And especially when approaching red lights or stopping, she would literally like scold me and say, like, turn the phone around. I was like, whoa, but I'm just looking up where we need to go. She's like, no, once we drive again, because this is the number one point, because the reflection of the screen is still can be seen from the outside, even through tinted windows. And this is the moment when the criminals attack and mug you with the motorcycles at gunpoint.
Yes. That is completely true. So that, for example, in Germany, I have never felt the need to hide my electronics. Of course, if you have your phone in a busy Altstadt street and like you're partying, someone might pickpocket it. That can happen, of course. But like you mentioned already, it's not something that happens at gunpoint and not something that is deliberately attacking you and your privacy as a person, like invading that space. It's more like, oh, I see an opportunity, I'm going to take the backpack that maybe has a nice laptop in it. It happens in Germany, of course. So still be careful with your belongings. It's just the sense of I can still use the stuff in public. Another point is the fact that I don't need to live in a gated community in Germany to be able to feel safe. In Guatemala, you live in a gated community, not because it's the fancy thing to do. It's actually sometimes just necessity because there needs to be protection against the outside world. So there are gates where there are security guards, and if you have visitors, you have to tell your last name and who are you visiting. In some cases, they call the person up, and if it's a green light, then they let the person in. If not, they push the people away. Mind you, I lived in a close community in Guatemala City, and my radio car, it's a radio car, from my car got stolen in front of my house where the car was parked. So it's no guarantee either, but it reduces crime, at least by a little bit.
Which there are no gated communities in Germany or Europe, I would say.
Yeah, and I would say if there's a gated community, it's probably like where the super rich people live.
I was going to say it's more for the luxuries and not for the protection per se.
Yeah, totally. So enough about the safety and the violence. We will change the note a little bit of the video. Number 2 that I have felt free by is the fact that I can be openly gay. This has been my experience alone, so I cannot also speak for the whole population of Germany. However, at least here in Düsseldorf, it's not, first of all, in Germany, it is okay. It's legally recognized to be in a same-sex marriage since 2017. And in a city like Düsseldorf, it's also okay to be openly gay and name your partner. And for example, I have no problem telling my doctors or my bosses or whatever that my wife, Yvonne, is doing something, or I need to take care of my wife or something. There is no reaction. However, for example, we've also heard from people from the South, I would say South, it tends to be a little bit more conservative. There could be a little bit of, I would say, friction in a way in terms of openly gayness. And I think this goes, generally speaking, the bigger the city, the more open it is, the tinier the town or the city, the close-minded it is. But this goes for the whole world, I would say, not just Germany per se. Oh. But in my experience living here in Düsseldorf, I felt completely fine being queer.
And not hiding yourself.
And not having to hide myself. Another example is when we went to Florida to visit my family. I have some family living there, and I felt more uncomfortable holding Yvonne's hand in Florida than I felt here in Düsseldorf, for example. So just to give a little bit of a ratio, that's not just a Guatemala thing as well, it's also some other parts of the world. Number 3 on the list is the fact that one can freely and openly go out jogging. You thought I was going to say queer again.
And this is actually inspired by one of you in our latest live stream when you asked us whether it is okay. You've seen other people go run or go jogging on the street or in a park, whether it's okay to do. And that just opened our eyes again, like, yes, of course, which we take for granted now, is actually freedom for someone from Guatemala or maybe other emerging countries that have suffered from more violence. So yes, the parks and the boardwalks of rivers and I don't know what are open to use and to appreciate, whether it is for sports or for leisure.
Yes, additional to that, it's not only the going jogging. You can not only have to go to a park to go jog, you can jog in the city. It's totally fine. No one will look weird at you. And additional to that is that people we have seen, we haven't done it ourselves, but it's totally fine to go to a park and work out. Like take your bands, use a tree. I mean, as long as you protect it, of course. But it's completely fine to use the outdoor space for exercise.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
Totally fine. So if you're a jogger and you're looking forward to it, then you can go jogging. Number 4 is the fact that one can drink alcohol publicly. Okay, this is this is my list, right? This is very subjective. So of course, if you don't drink alcohol, then this point might actually make you uncomfortable because there is high consumption of alcohol, generally speaking, on the streets in Germany. But what I'm referring is the fact that you don't need to go to a bar or a restaurant to enjoy a few beers with friends. You can literally do it on a grass area, sidewalk, wherever you want. You can just hang out and you can just be. And it's that freedom that, for example, I think Nauf mentioned this in a video that he was talking with Feli from Germany, that for him is the fact that he can grab a beer, walk through a town, and just enjoy it while he's enjoying his local beer.
Right, and we've actually experienced this firsthand in London when we visited on a weekend,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the mindset once you, like you said, you're chipped, you're wired, it's engraved in your DNA in a way. And we were literally, there was the hotel area and then there was a little downhill and that clearly, which we didn't know was the end of the hotel area, and there was a public bench overlooking the river. And we grabbed a beer from a local kiosk, supermarket, I don't remember, and we just sat there and had our drinks. And then very politely and in a very cute way, 2 cops approached us and kind of like asked us to maybe retreat 2 meters and go back on hotel property because we're not allowed to drink in public. And we're like, wait, we have a beer. What? I'm so sorry, we're from Germany. Like, kind of like giving that as an excuse. Not an excuse, just we were oblivious to it.
Yeah. Number 5 is the freedom of movement without needing a car. Okay, this also a big disclaimer as well. This goes to big cities in Europe, I would say, Germany.
Depends on what do you find big.
Yes, okay, like cities.
Cities. Yeah, cities of any, I mean, I grew up in a town of 30,000 people, which
Okay.
is not a big city.
But it's a city.
And I didn't need a car to move around.
That's a very fair point. Let's say cities. Of course, if you live, let's say, in the middle of nowhere on a very residential street in a very small village, then you will need a car to be able to move around and go to the supermarket and stuff. But generally speaking, cities are designed in a way in Europe that you have the stores and the living area together. They're blended. So, for example, here in the neighborhood, we have access to everything. We can go walking to the supermarket, to the doctor, to what else do we need to do? To
the restaurant.
To the restaurant.
To the gym.
To the gym, to
the
the pool,
movies.
to the library, to the movies. Like everything we can do. If it's not walking, then cycling. And if not, public transportation, if it's further away. And that is amazing. We lived 8 years in Düsseldorf without needing a car.
Yeah. And it's not the fact that you need to go from mall to mall to mall to get your services with a car, yeah?
Yes, like in Guatemala, there's like it's even like a block of a difference, but there's a mall that has this, but then you need something else. You need to drive to the next mall, which then you need to drive to the next mall, and mind you, 1,000 hours of traffic in between. Versus here, you just walk, which is pretty cool. Number 6 is healthcare.
Yes, and I think you would like to point out that it is the fact of worry-free living in a way. And I mean, this goes back to stories that we hear from friends and family in Guatemala and the US as an example.
Also friends from Brazil.
Also friends from Brazil, where you need to have a procedure, let's say like a surgery, like a bit more of a life-threatening procedure. And they think about it twice whether they actually do it or not, even though they know they need it, just because it might cause financial ruin or a high financial stress on them. And this kind of, again, psychological stress we don't have in Germany.
True. Also with this Brazilian friend, the dad needed to have an operation, and kind of the doctor says, unless we get paid at least 50%, we can't do anything.
And those were 5 figures. So, I mean, pull out 5 figures out of, I mean, banks
nowhere.
were closed out of your home in a matter of half an hour, or your dad dies. That is kind of like...
That is super stressful. And here, for example, of course, you pay monthly for your health insurance as part of the taxes that get deducted from your salary if you're employed.
Contributions.
Contributions, sorry. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Contributions. And it's the fact that you can, with ease of mind, go get checkups, go get surgeries. I mean, not that they're offering it, right? But if it's necessary.
You shouldn't go shopping for it, but it's necessary, it can be done. And you pay 10 euros per night that you stay in a hospital.
Yes.
In more severe cases, for example, like cancer, right? Which unfortunately happens anywhere in the world. But here, as long as you're insured, which you have to be, most of it, I would say 90%, not that I have a personal experience, but friends, is covered by insurance. And you can really just focus on getting well instead of trying to worry about how you might pay your next chemotherapy.
Yeah, 100%. Number 7 is the fact that you can be free to be whoever you want, but most importantly, to dress however you want.
To express yourself, yes, whether that is in style and fashion. I'd say most vividly you can see this in Berlin, where we have a whole video where we talk about Berlin versus the rest of Germany, and they are also fashion style, let's put it that way. But beyond fashion, for example, the simplest example is Jen having short hair. In Germany, women with short hair are a norm. Yes, that is completely accepted, normal, and not looked twice or whatsoever. Whereas when we travel in other countries, Guatemala included, Jen often gets referred to as senor or sir or
Yeah, which is super interesting. And on second or third look, they're like, sorry, señora, or like, ma'am, right? However, in Germany, it's a ma'am immediately. So that is super interesting to see that it's the way how society is portrayed, for example, in Guatemala, that if you're a woman, you need to have long hair, and that's how it is. Anything beyond that, then you're like, I don't know what to do. And here it's completely fine. And plus, you can dress however you want, I would say, and be whoever you want, which is, I think it's the freedom of expression, right? Like in Guatemala, if you have visible tattoos, it might mean that you might be in some shady stuff.
Well, I would say, okay, some shady stuff, no. But also tattoos, there is still stigma around it in Germany, unfortunately, but not as much as in Guatemala.
However, I have tons of friends and know people that have visible tattoos, and they're super good. I mean, they have a professional career, they have an income, they're not discriminated against because of that. Versus in Guatemala, that would be a reason to be discriminated against. And the tattoos, for example, I have a few tattoos, and the ones that I have, they're hidden. So you cannot really see them at first glance, and maybe I did that for a reason, because I don't know, I got one in Guatemala, that's why maybe. I hate it. Number 8 is the German passport. This one, of course, highly depends if you are a citizen of Germany, right? If you're interested in how you can get the citizenship, we have a whole video explaining it, which you can check out there. So I have my German citizenship and I have my German passport, and I would say compared to my Guatemalan passport is night and day.
Yeah, the first time we traveled together before you had your German passport, so a long time ago, it was a little bit awkward also for me. And again, it's always depending on perspective, right? This entire video, because when we had to go through immigration, we had to split up. And the first time we actually did split up and said, okay, see you on the other side. And then my immigration line was faster. And then I was waiting and waiting and waiting and thinking like, this is not cool. So the second time around, I actually went with you in your line because I didn't want to get the treatment, that, well, again, different countries unfortunately have different treatment. And we waited together. And now with my German passport, I get to go through all these fancy automated security checks in Europe when I travel abroad. And to be honest, it makes things faster. Plus, I don't cheaper. And cheaper because I don't need visas for, I think, let's say for Guatemala, I need like 300 visas, and now for Germany, maybe I need 50. Okay, you're
I'm pulling those numbers out of my mind because that's not true. But you know what I mean? Proportionally speaking, I need a lot less visas with my German passport than I would need with my Guatemalan one. Number 9, we have labeled the lightheartedness of kids. Now, this is a very kind of complex topic to explain. However, we will do our very best. So in my perception, again, this is again my perspective, I have been impressed by the fact that children in Germany tend to be free and independent quite early on. For example, the kids go alone, as you mentioned before, you would go alone to school, taking public transportation, being alone at night, coming back from maybe your taekwondo class, you can walk home. This is completely normal. So this reminds me of the sense of freedom that, wow, we live in a very secure country and people are raised to be independent in a way. But the most kind of complex area to talk about is the perception of our friends that have kids now. So we have a lot of German and German international couples, and the ones that are international, they have kids now, and when they go back home, for example, Mexico or Guatemala, they come back saying, wow, I really see the difference between like my children and the children in like Mexico or Guatemala, for example. It seems that the children in Germany are a lot more naive and innocent and more kids, let's say, versus the ones back home. For them, they tend to be a little bit more advanced or not so innocent anymore. And that just gives, again, the perception that in Germany, children can be children. They can be kids for as long as they need to be kids, versus circumstances back home in Guatemala, for example, might push kids to have to grow up a little bit faster, maybe for things they hear, for things they read, for things they see in our society. And that is, I don't know, it just feels so nice to see all the children happy playing on the streets and, quatching. Sometimes they're a bit too loud, but, that's a different topic. Number 10 on our list is the job/business opportunities.
Right, and this is actually a point that we were reminded of quite recently on your last trip to Guate, and that is in Germany. I've had colleagues and friends who are a little bit older than me, and let's say they're 45, and they choose to change employer or even change career. And I mean, I'm not saying it's super easy and you just snip and oh, there it is. No, but you need to have the skills, you need to hustle and apply, of course, but it is generally possible. And I mean, you still can be hired. And that I would want to put the emphasis on. You are still able to change and get a new job at the age of 45, 50, and so on. Whereas in Guate,
in my recent trip, I was talking to a friend and she's about 40 and she was applying for new jobs, and companies to her face would tell her, sorry, you're too old. It doesn't match our policy anymore. There was one company that hired her and kind of like gave her a chance because she's just way too old for the market.
And in recent conversations with Guatemalan friends, it really is, you have like the moment you reach 40, you have something like a tag on you. It's kind of like, now you are old. Now you are no longer valued or important. That also being said is that life expectancy, of course, is a little bit lower in Guatemala than compared to Germany. But still,
however, retirement is not.
I was going to say, but still,
yeah.
The fact that once you reach the age of 40, you hopefully are in the job position that you enjoy and you're willing, or not willing, but kind of like enjoy doing for the rest of your career, because that is kind of like where you get stuck in. And that for me was just like, wow, eye-opening.
So that's like from the work employed perspective, but additional to that is the freedom to create own businesses and companies. I would say, okay, yes, Germany is still a bit behind in the open-mindedness of like startups and new things, of course, if you compare it to something like Silicon Valley and the US. However, what I want to point out is that despite the let's say the lower amount of initiatives and stuff, there's still more than enough of them, and they are very well supported. Of course, you can have even government support for certain businesses. You have you have support from the system to create your own thing. We have a very beloved friend, and she's an artist. That's her job, and as an artist, you also get support from the government, right? There's even like housing for artists. There's like if you're an artist, if you're a foreigner, there's visa for artists. And the artist industry gets supported very well. And that goes along with creative, how do you say this? You're a freelancer in the creative area. Field. For example, if it would not be in the combination of a permanent residence permit, with me particularly, and now the citizenship, for example, something like Simple Germany wouldn't be possible, right? The possibility to have an online business, to be able to set everything up, because we are in a very strong economical country. Things like PayPal work, things like Amazon work, versus in Guatemala, it's not necessarily the case. And that for me is just amazing, because you have the possibility, if you would like to.
It's up to you, yeah.
It's up to you to either change jobs while you are still old, right? Or create your own business, and it's okay. If you're curious on how I ended up in Germany, make sure to check out the video here on the left that's about my journey. Until next time, cheers! If you're curious on how I ended in Germany, you can check.
Oh, you swallowed ended up.
Hello.
How you said how I ended. You didn't end. Ended up.
Ended up.
You're missing the up.
If you're curious how I ended in Germany.
Wanna do it again? I was like pointing at your face.